Hi everyone, Amy here with your midweek updates for week 4. I have posted a lot in the news this week since Monday morning, and just make sure that you do scroll down and take a look at everything, including your to-do list, the feedback I had on your first rough draft workshop last week, and just a reminder that tonight at midnight is the final draft deadline for your summary essays, so make sure you have those in the Dropbox by midnight. All the other homework for this week is, of course, due Sunday, aside from your comments on the discussion, which are due also tonight at midnight. Several of you have put a lot of your stuff in the Dropbox already this week, and some of you are even done with both of your comments in the discussion. So I think that we are just moving right along nicely. I also sent out an email about this deadline as well. I just want to make sure that you all know that the final draft is due tonight because it's kind of our first final draft deadline, and the Friday night deadlines are a little bit different from everything else that's due Sunday night at the end of the week. So I'd like to reinforce that and just remind you guys. But mostly I want to focus today on the discussion, the week 4 comparing visuals discussion, which is our very first discussion of Unit 2, in which you will be writing your campaign analysis in the form of a blog. So you guys overall had some really good ideas already. It was really cool to see because I know I've been discouraging you all semester long from evaluating or providing your own opinion because we've been working with summary, and so now you get to kind of add some of that subjective response and push it even into true analysis. And so I always enjoy getting to read the ideas that you come up with. It's somewhat more interesting than summary, let's say. Summary is important. It's a strong foundation. You have to be able to summarize and understand something accurately before you can analyze it, but the analysis part is really the fun part. So I enjoyed reading what you guys came up with this week, and I'm going to focus here primarily on your original posts, and then I'll just highlight some of the good comment discussions that are kind of going back and forth right now that I want to encourage as you finish up your comments tonight and then provide your final reflections over the weekend. So like I said, I did pull out quite a few examples this time of things I saw, specifically in your original posts, addressing the ways that the ads are trying to appeal to their viewers in different ways through logos, pathos, and ethos, or through those rhetorical strategies. And particularly, I also wanted to pull out a number of examples here because I saw a lot of things that I thought will be able to help you as you start to draft your campaign analysis essays. So this can be kind of a tricky assignment. It's got a lot of little parts to it, especially once you put it into that blog genre format. But you've already got a strong foundation for the skills that you'll need to execute in the practice you have here through this week's discussion. So that's why I wanted to pull out so many different examples. This first one I thought had a good point, just bringing in some of those vocabulary terms from the textbook readings this week, specifically talking about the strategies that the ads were using to kind of wage that long-term campaign or really draw their viewers in, or bring their viewers to be invested in their argument. So this person says the NRDC used the mirror effect when they were showing current at the time images of people and wildlife suffering the side effects of the BP oil spill. They played with our emotions using pathos by showing us these images, and trying to convince us by asking for a vote for clean energy was ethos. So like I just said, I did want to emphasize the correct use of the vocabulary term here, just kind of bringing the reader into the ad with that mirror-like strategy that your book talks about. So that was a good application of the course concepts, I thought, here. And then the second part, I wanted to point out that a lot of you did come up with especially good ideas as to how pathos in particular was being executed in both of the ads. I did see a lively discussion kind of going back and forth about the different uses of ethos in the ads, and I think maybe even there was some controversy among you all with that, but pathos was something that every person almost touched on. And if you didn't say the word pathos, you at least said the word emotion, almost every single one of you. So I think that across the board, you guys were all the most successful with your discussion of pathos and tying it into the different visual strategies, the use of sound and music, and just basically everything that these ads were trying to do. And then this last part was more of a clarification. I really appreciate this person going out on a limb, again, using these vocabulary words and doing your best to apply them to the ads. And I really want to commend all of you that used words like logos, pathos, and ethos, because that is really what I was looking for you all to do. But I want to clarify here that this actually is probably more of an instance of logos than ethos, because logic tends to pertain to the quality of the message itself or how successful the writer is in actually persuading you. So because of that, it also tends to tie very closely to whatever the thesis of the text is. And so convincing us to vote for clean energy is the thesis of the NRDC ad. And so if you're talking about, you know, how they directly tried to persuade you, that is the quality of the message itself. And so that to me is more logos. But I do also want to point out that there are sometimes going to be overlap between these different types of appeals. So there may be some strategy or technique being employed, and it could appeal to both pathos and ethos. So for example, Ryan Reynolds is the speaker in the NRDC ad, and I noticed some of you talking about the fact that, oh, he's just a celebrity and so he's going to draw people in that way, or someone even posted in a comment on the video that they wanted to see his abs, or they watched just to see his abs or something like that. That's definitely pathos. But then one of you also said that you had done some research and seen that Ryan Reynolds actually has been active in environmental issues, is kind of an authority, or at least someone who is invested in environmental issues, and so that could be ethos as well. So you could say that the choice to use Ryan Reynolds in the NRDC ad was one that had an effect on persuasive appeals to both ethos and pathos. So I don't want to say that it always has to be one or the other, but in this case I do think the way it's stated here ties more or sounds more like logos, and if you're going to make a case that this was ethos, you maybe just need to explain it a little bit more. Okay, and then as I said, again, a lot of the things I pulled out here I hope can show you exactly what you need to do when you sit down to write your essay for this unit that we're now in. So this person says the NRDC video begins with loud, obnoxious noises and continues with traffic noises, etc. to spark negative emotions within the viewer, whereas the BP video begins with the slow, mellow music and progressively becomes more upbeat to rein in positive emotions. So there were a couple things I appreciated here. One is just that this person is bringing the two ads directly into comparison and contrast with each other by discussing them together instead of just, oh, here's all the things the NRDC ad did and here's all the things the BP ad did. I think that the most successful posts did kind of have a weaving back and forth between them, so I liked that this person was able to achieve that. But then I also wanted to point out that this is a good example of the kind of connection between specific visual and audio strategies, or visual, verbal, and textual strategies, and the rhetorical effects that they achieve, or the effects that they have on the audience. So in your essay, what I want you to basically do is say, here's a particular rhetorical effect that the ad either executed successfully or unsuccessfully, and then within that paragraph give me the examples like this person has here. So you could add a topic sentence here that says something like, the NRDC video had a lot of strong appeals to pathos. Then you could say it begins with loud, obnoxious noises, continues with traffic noises, etc. It sparks negative emotions within the viewer, etc., etc., etc. Now you only need to analyze one ad for your campaign analysis blog essay. So you don't need to bring in a second ad here. You would only bring in that supplementary text that the assignment calls for if you are trying to offer further evidence or back up your discussion in any way. So for example, if you were making a point about ethos and you want to say something that they've really left out that makes them appear untrustworthy, you might want to bring in that information from an outside source to back it up. Again, so here I just wanted to point out that you really do want to point out specific examples of the different appeals like this, but in your essay, just organize it into a paragraph and then add your topic sentence that addresses which type of appeal you're going to discuss, and then discuss the different appeals one at a time in different paragraphs. And so again here I thought we had a good example of a weaving back and forth between the two, as well as a connection between specific examples and the rhetorical effects that they achieve. So this person says the NRDC ad uses pathos by showing negative images when discussing BP. It shows dirty or unsightly areas of the world. The BP ad also uses pathos, but in a positive way. The entire video is very pleasant nature scenes and shows happy people. The NRDC video uses logos by telling viewers that they need to get their senators to vote for clean energy. After it shows the dirty scenes caused by oil, the BP video uses logos to talk about how many jobs it provides as well as investments it makes in America. So again, a good weaving back and forth comparison contrast here. NRDC uses pathos this way, BP uses pathos this way. NRDC uses logos this way, BP uses logos this way. So I just thought that was good to see, because that's kind of a synthesis of the two sources that I was wanting you guys to practice with this assignment as well. And then here I wanted to point out that this person does something else that you'll need to do in your campaign analysis essay, which is to make an overall evaluation of the persuasiveness of the ad at the end of your discussion. That's going to be the delayed thesis that the assignment sheet calls for. So you have your discussion of the particular visual strategies and rhetorical effects, and then you say, overall, I thought it was very moving, or even more specific than that, you can say, overall, because of the appeals to logos, pathos, and ethos, it was very persuasive. Or you could say it's not persuasive. I'm not going to sit here and say that you all have to talk about how great these ads are that you choose to analyze. You can say that an ad is not persuasive as long as you have reasons to back that up that are based in rhetorical appeals, and then you have good evidence or examples from the text, or these specific examples of visual strategies like we see here within the paragraphs to kind of prove your points. And then finally, I just thought this one was a really good discussion of the rhetorical appeals in general. The BP ad uses logos by stating facts, like that tourism is doing better now than it has in years, and that BP provides almost 250,000 jobs in America. It uses ethos more subtly than the NRDC ad, having an everyman representative speaking in a relatable Southern twang. It is very possible that he was chosen to be relatable, thus trustworthy, humanizing the large corporation. BP also uses pathos in a pretty obvious way, showing images of pristine beaches, families on those beaches, and fish swimming around, scuba divers. They also show smiling pictures of employees who are very diverse. I wanted to point this out because, like I said earlier, there was some back and forth as to the use of ethos in the BP ad in particular, and so I thought this was a particularly astute and in-depth discussion of how the BP ad does in fact use ethos, because their choice to have Fred Lamond be the spokesperson there is definitely a deliberate one. You can rest assured that every choice in an advertisement is deliberate, and he is meant to seem trustworthy and to try to make BP appear kind of relatable, even though it's a very large corporation. So I thought Peter really summed that up nicely here. And then, as promised, I also wanted to point out just a couple of the good comment back and forth threads that were going on. So definitely one of those I saw was the very first Jason. So not only is there a lot of checking in by all the participants here and a lot of good back and forth exchange, it's just a really in-depth discussion that reveals some, I think, astute again and intuitive and insightful understanding of the different rhetorical effects. So particularly between Jason and Kara here, and then Tabitha as well, you can see that some of the things they're saying about Ryan Reynolds as a spokesperson, for example, the NRDC choices, I thought were really interesting and in-depth. So go take a look at their conversation if you haven't gotten a chance to already. And then I think there was another one right, maybe Tabitha's as well. Right around, there were a couple in a row. You can see, Jason's kind of commenting on Tabitha, Tabitha's kind of commenting on Jason. So these people are actually throughout the week having a pretty in-depth discussion. I thought, let's see, thought Nicole's had a couple of good. Oh yeah, Phoebe, you had a lot of great comments this week. Really appreciate your in-depth and thoughtful commentary and your suggestions. Just some really interesting things going on here as well. So keep up the good work in your conversations throughout the rest of today before midnight when your comments are due. And then again, you guys have been doing really well with reflections overall, so I'm sure you'll keep that up too over the weekend. And then of course, don't forget your summary essays are due tonight at midnight as well, and then your reading matrices and your postscript on Sunday night. All right, well, have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks so much.